And good morning, everyone. This is Steve Hilborn coming to you from Georgian College on a Saturday afternoon. I apologize for this Friday, and I thank you very much for your patience. Just had some stuff happen that I just need to take care of, and we are back to our regular scheduled course. So what's great about this course and what I'm really excited about is that the next 3 weeks for sure, and really the next 4 or 5 weeks of this semester, we are all going to have a lot of fun doing some design things. So this is our very first actual conversation about restaurant design, other than very briefly introducing it as we work through some of the previous material. So, so today, the idea of this lecture is to go through a little bit of the recap of the course, but also what we'll be doing for the remainder. I'll give you an introduction to some restaurant design. We'll talk about some trends in design, and then some very top level kind of how do you plan an effective design? Where do you start information? So the very first 6 weeks that we talked about, we mostly just looked at menus. How do these menus work? What do we need to know about them? How do different people try to really promote items? When it's time for a menu change? And using menu engineering, how do we adapt and change some things? Now, I try to train you on the majority of that kind of information, but what I think maybe we all understand now, that there's a certain creative component that you can't really train very well. It's more about experience and just working at it and trying different things. So even with your menu design, yes, you have a base level understanding of how you could put a menu together. It really comes down to some trial and error to see what fits well. And usually in the industry, and as we go through, we will have an understanding, okay, I developed this menu, it worked okay, but these few courses or these few different entrees I see didn't sell very well. So then you adapt and you change, and it's just an evolving work. So yeah, we talked all about the menu, how it can affect your physical layout, how it can affect your target market, and what are some of the differences in the way that many of these restaurants are set up, because this often changes how the menu layout and the physical design is as well. So commercial versus non-commercial, chain, franchise, or independent. If you're a chain or a franchise, you have very little say on the design of your specific place. They have floor plans already set for you. If you're an independent, you have free will. So a little difficult to read this. Sorry, I stretched it out. But this is what the remainder of the next 6 weeks, which is all we have left. It's crazy. So this is the remainder of the 6 weeks that we have left. We were to have last week our group or individual meetings and brainstorming sessions. Now, this was just for us to kind of like meet and talk, and you can bounce some ideas off me. This can happen anytime. I know I kind of set up these Friday meetings, so I really wanted to meet with you all and make it like not a mandatory, but very scheduled, so I'd see you all. As it is now, though, please just email me anytime. In our classes coming up, you can stick around later. Maybe you can come in a little bit early and I can jump in early. Just email me, let me know what you want to do, and I will work around it. Going forward, the next 3 classes are going to be mandatory. Everyone get your butts into class, because not only will I be kind of going over what that topic is for the week, I'll also introduce that specific assignment, and it will be due that Sunday coming up. So introduce Friday at 1 p.m., due Sunday by midnight. Yes, there will be some options that are open on the weekends, a Saturday and a Sunday one, but that doesn't mean it's going to fit your schedule, and I might not be available to help you on the weekend. I am available to help you on Friday. Ideally, what we're going to do for the next 3 weeks is that every day you come in, I talk about what we're going to be doing, I introduce the assignment, and then by the end of 4 p.m. or whenever, you can complete and submit it right there in class. And with the ability of someone like myself and other classmates there to help you out. So please be there, 1 p.m. This week, and every single assignment, we kind of get more complex and more into some of the different design components. So that's week 9, 10, and 11. On week 12, it'll be an online class or a remote class. There will be a video lecture like this, as well as a couple different maybe a little bonus assignment for you. I will also open up on the same dates, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, during the same times, for you to start working on your major assignment design. You can go ahead, you can work ahead on this design component of your restaurant, that's fine, but I do think that you will learn quite a bit as we go through these 3 weeks about what to do and what not to do. So you might take a couple steps forward and take a few steps back if you go ahead too early and try to design your restaurant. So I would recommend get some ideas about it, get a feeling for what it might look like in the size, and then after you complete week 11, which is where we do a back-of-house design, then you can really jump in and start creating your final layout for your big assignment, your big final project. There's lots of other components in that final project that you can work on for now while you're being trained on the design portion. Week 13 is our last test, so test 2 online, and then on week 14 is your final project due by 5 p.m. Because our class Friday at 1 p.m. is not maybe ideal for you to be submitting something by 5, like you might want to meet with me earlier or throughout that week. So I'll be there Friday at 5, but if we need some time throughout the week, you want to meet me Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whatever, I'll be around, and that will give you more time to meet with me and then go and complete something. Okay, I hope that helps. So when it comes to restaurant design, we like to look at what do people really do well? How do we create spaces that people love to be in? And I like to gather some inspiration from places that do this very well around the world. So this is the Amo restaurant in Hong Kong. Now this one right here, there are things that you just want to look at. So you look at color schemes, right? You look at textures, you look at spacing, you look at seating. So what I'm looking at here, when I look at color schemes, it's metallic and whites, and there's a little bit of green. When I look at textures, it's metals and cold and sterile feeling, and very clean feeling as well. And you'll see like all of this and the lighting as well. And lighting is such an important component to restaurant design. So when you look at these, I just want you to kind of like bring those out. So it has like these slate gray floors, has lots of copper elements all over in the windows and everything else. It has green outside as well as some of the fabrics. And the fabrics are white and copper, as well as the ceilings are white and copper and the copper bar top. And so you see all of these different elements work well together. This is the design bar in Stockholm, Sweden. I get more of a kid-friendly feel to this, almost like a Super Mario or a Mad Scientist workshop kind of thing. Any nerd would love this. Any scientist, chemist, someone in the sciences would love this. I love it. I think it's so very cool. This is the Ozone Bar in Hong Kong. Again, there's a lot of like earth elements here, things that look like stone, lots of actual stone, granite. These kind of look like the stalagmites or stalagmites, kind of like an ice lounge over here. Just very unique looking, no all irregular shapes, right? So there's no like circles or square tables. Even all these tables over here, you see they're all kind of bendy and wavy, because as they say, God does not design in straight lines, but humans do. So a lot of things that we do, are square or a very specific perfect circle, and nature does not typically do that. This is maybe one of my favorite because I love Harry Potter. I'm a nerd. Okay, let's just get that across. And this feels like it's kind of this, New Orleans, Southern kind of design, underworld kind of fantasy bar there. And there's like some of the death head figures and these different greens and these old school chairs. And it gives you just a different otherworldly feel. Personally, I hate this one, the Holy Food Reformed Church in Belgium. It just seems too clean and too lacking of personality, but it's won a lot of awards. And they took an old church, and you see like the old cathedral style ceilings, which they left as they were. Take out all the pews and everything else, and you just have this very Spartan looking element. So those kind of things will give you some ideas about how and what we want to think about when we talk about design. So the process necessary to plan a design for food and beverage operation should include a lot of things. So who is doing the design? So often what we want to think about, okay, let's not just have your chef and your front of house manager, but then also you want somebody who understands the design building code elements, and them all. You might want to pull in some market analysis and look for different trends in food and beverage design that are happening right now. COVID, I suppose, is not a trend. It's more of an imposed trend. It's not something that we necessarily want to do, but have to do. But it could be, you might want to consider healthcare and sanitation just in future design projects. You want to talk about space requirements, how are people moving around, and also how food safety and sustainability will affect your design as well. So there's a couple ways that we can start about it. You have a concept by now. If you don't, get going, get a concept. When you think about your concept, a lot of these questions can be answered as far as spacing. So if your concept is more of a quick or fast service, daytime kind of environment, your tables will be closer together and you're not really worried about it. If it's more of a fine dining and a slowed down environment that's more intimate, your spacing, you want to put more room in between tables so you kind of feel like you're off on your own. Same thing with colors and textures and lighting. We look at flow of traffic, regulation spacing. So can somebody in a wheelchair get to all of the places that they want to get to, as well as equipment needs and safety issues. When you design, you must also understand that, and we'll talk about this a little bit, you have to design as if somebody in a wheelchair may work for you. So it's AODA, the Accessibility for Ontario's Disabilities Act. And basically what it is saying that regardless of physical situation, if you have a disability, you'll still be able to work. So we look at a couple trends that really kind of have a lot to do with design. So the first one is eco-friendliness or sustainability. This is something that's never going away. It's only ever going to get more important. And as we keep increasing the amount of population in the world, we have to change how we work. So this could be a bunch of different ideas. It could be menu options that incorporate some like rooftop garden options. So you might have all your own herbs and some vegetables or some leafy greens come from your own gardens. You may include lots of greenery or water features, wastewater reduction, using eco-friendly materials. So a lot of places have built places that have, yes, cut down 20, 30 trees, but use those trees, milled them, and created the furniture inside the restaurant, and then planted 30 trees elsewhere to ensure that they were staying eco-friendly. So this also could be a rooftop garden. This could be just using actual vegetation as a form of insulation. So even just all of these live bushes that you see here, or the vines, they cool you down in the summer and they warm you up in the winter, and it just saves on energy. This is the Rustic Grenville house in North Carolina. So basically what they're doing is that they're powered completely by geothermal and solar power. They reuse their rainwater, and the waste is filtered and used for all the watering of their plants. They don't have a zero carbon footprint because in our industry it's almost impossible, but they are very, very close. This is the Vantage Shanghai in Shanghai. And like as I was saying before, every single plant or almost every plant that was removed to build this restaurant was either used in the building or transplanted elsewhere. Another trend that we like to talk about is architecture. So often what happens is that we might be living in an urban environment where you don't get a restaurant inside the woods, right? You don't get a restaurant on the beach. Yet you still want to provide an ambiance and some a scenic environment. So with technology and just the architecture that we can use, we can do a lot of different things. This one here is just the bamboo palace. So essentially they use bamboo to basically transform a very large open area into a lot of little segregated little dining spaces, which still doesn't feel cramped or claustrophobic because you can see through it, but you also get a little bit of a privacy in there. This here, what looks is just a regular room. It's a square room, but what looks to be like you built this inside a mountain or inside a cave is actually just kind of, that's what the theme they're going for. So they use all the rough texturized ceiling and floor or wall tile. They use the Edison bulbs, which are very, you think of a mine shaft with an Edison bulb. That's kind of the look for that. Same thing with the flooring. And then they put these backlit windows of scenic spaces of outside looking at the neighboring mountain or the landscape. This here is that they're using a lot of different architecture to show what I think is just the most gaudy, like disgusting looking thing, but people love it. This is like an under the sea theme. It makes you think that you're literally under the water, or there's some sort of aquarium specifically here on the right that you would see fish swim by. Now, if you look to the window here, you'll see that you're obviously not under the water, but that's the horizon on the lake or on the ocean. But it just has all this blue glass kind of feel to it, which some people would 100% love. I personally don't love it. I like something like this where it's actually under the water, but that's just me. And then also building within nature as well. So using the live tree they built around it. This one here has trying to incorporate some sort of elegance and class. And again, they're using all of these lovely pillars and crown molding and really fancy lighting to show more of a different tone for this kind of place. This one here is taking a flat floor, and by creating this seating, you've actually created a bunch of different levels where you are seated below or above someone. And people really love this. And this is a great little location with this huge open kitchen in the back. And you'll notice there's a lot of open kitchens through a lot of these designs that we look at. It generally seems to be more of a, when you go out, you want a dinner and show almost, and you want to see how your food's being prepared. And if you saw in a fast food restaurant, perhaps how your food's being prepared, you might not want it. So you want to see how your food's being prepared. You want to see who's doing it. And it just adds another element to the dining experience. And then, of course, you can do some open-walled beach-themed restaurants. Now, this might not be available year-round, but as you can see here, they're on this lovely ocean. This is kind of what I envision if you are doing a restaurant on the beach side, where you have this seasonal, lovely patio, and then also an interior restaurant as well. And then the final trend that we talk about, well, I guess there's two more. So next one I want to talk about is technology. So again, while it might not be a trend, just like sustainability isn't a trend, it's just a more so of a way of life. People are drawn to different uses of technology. People want to go to places that they can look up the menu online, that they can see what the restaurant looks like inside. They can pay however they want. So there are a lot of cool things that are out there, such as changing wall displays that can make your restaurant feel like wherever you are. A couple great stats about this is that operators agree in the restaurant industry that tech provides a competitive advantage, and investing in tech increased profitability, and about 50% of them feel like they're lagging. So over almost 75% of all restaurants believe that we should invest in technology and they give us an advantage. When you guys ask me sometimes about like what kind of career opportunities do I have, this should say something right here to you. Yeah, you work in food and beverage, but you don't need to be a server or a bartender or a manager of a restaurant. You can work in food and beverage and be an entrepreneur, innovator of a tech, right? A different style of point of sale system, different styles of display boards, different payment opportunities where you can take Bitcoin and blah, 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 all these different things. There are more jobs than what we give credit for. couple other stats I want to bring up. 88% of people use technology to look up locations, directions, and hours, and 70% of them vote them menus. It's probably even more. 71% of businesses experience a cyber attack, and 34% attacked by a current employee. So these are things that also, when it comes to more jobs in the industry, some sort of cybersecurity role might be a fit. Now, when I say that, yeah, you might need some more training in that particular kind of field, but everyone needs that food and beverage experience before they ever to do something elsewhere. You also see different styles of ordering. So when we talk about menu design, yeah, we might do some menu design on paper, but we might also be doing a lot of menu design for tablets, menu design for computers, menu design for tabletop ordering units, such as this, where you can simply click and drag and put all of your pizza items on there. And then when you're ready, you actually grab the pizza and slide it, and it goes into the oven. And that's like it's fun. People love that kind of thing. It's really neat. There's robot cooking. I'm not sold on that yet, but some people might think that's a fad. And then like the changing wall displays, where we can have this lovely table and I can change this to having a thunderstorm in the background, or on the beach, or in this kind of meadowy orchard, whatever you want. As holographic information actually starts to really become more able to be used in a smaller setting, like a restaurant, where they have, as the cost of these things come down, you will be able to see some of this stuff where you'll have some moving imagery, or it could be a feature where you can walk around it and look at it. And we're not that far away. So some of the major technology changes that we need to remember, some of which are Bluetooth temp sensors. So when it comes to different inventory tracking, temperature checks, fridge temperature checks, all this kind of stuff, it was a manual process that you often had to do that now is becoming more tech-centered, so it can almost be done remotely. You can manage your restaurant from your home by looking at your cameras, by checking your temps in your inventory, by looking at your reservations, and you can do much of that work having a cup of coffee at home in the morning before you head into work. So the way that we work, as well as the way that we serve customers, is going to change quite a bit. Of course, different payment tools, and everyone can pay from your phone now, kiosk and tabletop tablets, different ways of reserving tables. So Open Table is a good example, but these are now the ways of the future as well. And then also a lot of different kinds of kitchen equipment that reduce the cost of the equipment, or can reduce the time in which it takes to prepare many of these items. And the final trend that I want to talk about is local. So local is a reversal of the huge name brand craze of always dining at the chain restaurants. It's always buying the iPhones. It's going to Walmart for your groceries. A lot of people want unique. They want original. They want local. They want to support the small guy. And I think COVID actually made us take a step back because we weren't able to either shop in those small places. But now that things are opening back up again, you're going to see this. And I think you're already seeing it a lot with a lot of the Christmas trends of people saying, I don't want to go to Costco, Walmart, and Best Buy for Christmas. Who's making what? Because I want to buy that off of you. A little plug here on why you want to spend at a local business, even yourselves if you can. When you spend $100 at a local business, about $70 stays in your community, which pays for your municipalities and your donations and your wages. Like you want everyone else to make more money. You want to make more money. Spend your money locally. Then those local companies get more money. They keep more. And then therefore they're able to pay more. So if your own community does not pay wages you believe that are good enough, you may be part of that problem. When you spend $100 at a non-local business, about 43% stays in your community, or $43 of that 100. Again, why shoppers say they prefer small local retailers. They're unique. You can find what you want. They like supporting. And much of this has actually changed over time. And if you want even a little bit more information, this is in the PowerPoint about not only does it help your local economy, but it really helps the environment as far as shipping and everything else that we spend, and packaging and all the stuff that is very wasteful, and your own health. Because if you get food that comes from somewhere that has to be on a ship for a week and a half and then it comes here, think about what they're putting on that food so it stays fresh, right? You pick a tomato from your garden and you bring it in and you set it there. 3 days later, it's starting to go bad. You have a tomato at a grocery store, and for 4 weeks, it took them 2 weeks to get here. They've been buying for another 2 weeks. This is an issue. That kind of food, you probably shouldn't ingest whatever coating they're spraying on that. So you just keep that in mind. Yeah, it's good for your local economy. It might cost you a fraction more. So it costs you 10% more to buy something local versus at a Costco. But the ripple effect that it can cause is actually quite great. So as a goal of design, a total dining experience comprises not only the food and beverage service, but the atmosphere, the ambiance, and the style of service. Your design and decor should harmonize with that product. So basically what we have to do is that we must think of all of those different moving parts, as well as light, as well as color, as well as spaces that match our concept. So here's a few design principles that I just want you to remember. First of all, keep it simple, stupid. It's seal it with a kiss. It's just a saying they have, basically, that people sometimes try to over-plan and over-develop some sort of process that we've already figured out, right? Like, we know the front host area should have a little waiting area with a vestibule, which means keep some of the cold air out. We don't need to make this, you can walk in and everyone gets these comfortable massage chairs. Just keep it simple. In that instance, we're not making any more money by doing that, and we're probably not really attracting any more people. It doesn't need to be done. Make sure you can move your people and product around your restaurant without accidents. So that's like hidden corners and making sure they don't have to walk 50 steps when they can walk 20 steps. Making things easy to clean. Make sure that you have a sanitary place. If it's difficult to clean, your hourly staff, who are probably underpaid, don't want to clean it. Make it easy for you to supervise, including theft. Make it labor effective. Again, setting up your bar, setting up your kitchen, ensuring where your dishwasher is centrally located so everyone can bring their dishes there fairly easily, and then just using your space. So you can never have enough storage, but you have a lot of dead areas where people don't want to necessarily sit, or it's too far away from a lot of the stuff. Those are some really good places to use the space for storage. So there are a lot of front of house areas, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. Now, front of house means everything but the kitchen. So in the kitchen is considered BOH, which is back of house. So that's the kitchen and storage and dishwashing and offices and garbage and all that. Front of house is basically anywhere where a customer might be. So it could be a merchandising area, depending if you're selling something. If you're like a bakery or a brew pub, you might sell glassware, t-shirts, or your barbecue sauce or things of that nature. Your reception area could also be called your host area. And this is where you first greet your customer. And these areas I think will now need to be expanded upon and a little bit bigger because of now the space constraints where you don't want 50 people in a small little area waiting for a table. You also are now having to check vaccine passports and IDs and all this other stuff. And while this is supposed to go away in January, I think the overall health concern of too many people in one small space will still exist. So before, the reception was often a small area, but now we might want to give it a little bigger. There's always going to be cashier server stations, and we'll get into those, as well as seating, aisles, and traffic corridors. We'll look at storage, the bar area, and then, of course, washrooms. Ways in which that we determine the correct amount of space is by looking at these different steps or looking at these different factors. So you want to think about how many meals do I expect to serve in an evening or in a shift. So it's lunch or it's a dinner. What kind of function and tasks need to be performed? What kind of equipment is required? How many employees and workstations? what kind of storage requirements are there, the type of service, the traffic flow. So let's say you're designing a kitchen for for a fast food restaurant, because most of your product is coming in just ready to be cooked. There's no preparation, right? You're not bringing in potatoes and cutting them into French fries, then blanching them, then having to store them, and then bringing them up. They're probably all in the freezer. So you'll need a lot more freezer space. You'll need very few workstation prep stations, because they're basically coming out of a bag or a box and going into the equipment, which is a lot of deep fryers and grills. The type of service, there is no really type of service. They come up to the cashier and they get their food and then they leave. So that gives you an idea of some of the factors that you would have to keep in mind. Now, I think there are 12 steps here for planning an effective design. I won't go through all of them in detail, and I won't read them to you right now, but please look at your PowerPoint. These are 12 things that you just want to read and think about before you jump into the design. So things such as having a proper appeal and ambiance, and a practical layout, and simplified procedures. Now, we've talked about this already a lot in this lecture, but basically what you want to do is that these are the 12 formal steps that you want to look at before you start putting actually walls and furniture in. Turnover rate. So turnover rate, and what is meant by this and how is it determined? So turnover rate is how often a seat is used in a given period of time. It is the formula of the number of guests divided by the number of seats, and it varies from meal period. So some meal periods, such as dinners, are longer than a breakfast. So if we want to increase turnover rate, so this is meant much of the issue in our current restaurants, and we looked at this a little bit already, is that the dining times have increased, and not because it takes longer to prepare the food, but generally because the customer, such as myself, we do it differently. Like when we go out for dinner, we want to go out for a couple hours. So dining times used to be like 65 minutes. Now they're closer to 2 hours. And they're on their phones and they're hanging out, and they've just really changed the way that they want to do things. So we want to increase turnover rate by decreasing our dining times only to the point where we're not offending anyone. I want you to come. I want you to spend money. I want you to have a great time. But could you do it in less than 3 hours? That would be great. Because if I'm a diner or a restaurant that serves dinner predominantly, first tables start coming in 4 or 5. But usually like 6:37 is that busy point. If I don't seat that table until 6 o'clock and they're there for 3 hours and they leave at 9, I only flip that seat once. That's like my turnover rate is 1. That's not enough. You would like to get 2, perhaps even 3. So you can seat it at 4:30, they're done by 6. You seat one at 6, they're done by 7:30. You seat one at 7:45, and they're done by 9. And then you can really make some more money. So ways that we do this is that we increase some of the pre-prepared items on the menu. We can select items that have a shorter preparation time. If you have like a full chicken that you're cooking, it just takes hours and hours. So even if you pre-cook it, it still might take you 40 minutes. So having an item that takes 40 minutes from the time that they order might just really hurt you in the end. You keep your tables close together. Often what happens is that many people just don't feel as comfortable. It's not a great way of doing it, but if you're like a cafeteria style place, it's completely fine. Again, using brighter colors, increasing your lighting. These are things that will get people moving around quicker. The dimmer the lighting, the more intimate the feel, the longer they want to stay. Increase your production area. So this is a great piece of advice that, if you can increase how fast the food comes out, then you should be able to reduce the amount of time every customer stays there. Decrease menu selections as well. Faster production times because they have more practice doing the actual events or the actual entrees. And then also it takes longer or takes less time for the customer to select what they want. Increase the number of service staff. We've done this at the keg. On Fridays and Saturdays, we go from 4 table sections to 3 table sections. Every single server hated it. They said, well, you're taking away 25% of my paying, tipping tables. Now, what we did find out was that generally, because we were able to decrease the turnover rate, decrease the amount of time people spent and increase the turnover rate, they got just as many tables, they made just as much money, but because we brought on more staff, the entire restaurant made more money. So it was a win-win. And then also institute a policy to speed up delivery of guest checks. So the minute that dessert is ordered, we typically brought them the check. So you order dessert? Sure, no problem. We would bring the check and be like, this is just for your convenience, and it's all how you word it. If you're nice and say, for your convenience, just so you're not looking for me later, but if you want something else, please let me know, not a big deal. And a lot of people really appreciate that, and the one or two people that thought that was some sort of rude for some reason, you make up with all of those more customers that you're able to serve. So does a customer feel more rude that they have to wait at the front door for 20 more minutes? Or does a customer feel rude that they don't have to look for their bill? It's there when they are ready for it. Here's a little helpful slide for you on how to estimate your total dining area. And this is by square feet. Now, a square foot, just so you know, is 1 foot by 1 foot. 1 foot up and down, 1 foot left and right. And that is a good way of looking at that. So most of your bedrooms probably are, 10 by 12 or 12 by 16 square feet. And that gives you an idea. And if you were to find out what that room is, if you said 10 by 12, you multiply it, it's 120 square feet. So here they say per seat for table service, it's 12 to 18. It's in metric too here, but we don't need to worry about that. Counter service is 16 to 20, and that usually takes more because on the one side of the counter is just going to be the staff, and the other side is the person. Booth service is 12 to 16, cafeteria service 12 to 16, and banquet style is 10 to 12. So when you are looking at, hey, I want to develop different dining areas within my restaurant, you will have some counter service, that will be your bar. You'll have some table service, that'll be the tables that are kind of not up against a wall for the most part and have the ability to be flexible and joined together or pulled apart. And then you'll have booth service, which a lot of people prefer, but most booths don't seat more 4 to 6 people. And some only seat 2, and they're not movable. So the idea is that you want to have the right combination of all these different styles of seating to serve all kinds of parties. Table 10 walks in, you want enough table service style places that you can pull them together to serve the table of 10. You have 12 couples come in throughout the night. Individually, you want a lot of booths because they're going to love those. So what you would basically do is per seat as well. So a table service that fits 4, it would be 48 by 72 or whatever that math works out to be. 16. Yeah. And you should be able to find out how much room would you need if you have a 50-seat restaurant. And the only thing if you pick 50 seats by table service, yeah, you can figure that out. But it might be a combination of different seating. Hallways, entrances, washrooms, and storage. This actually takes up a lot more space than you might give it credit for. So when we think about traffic flows, it refers to the movement of employees, guests, products, and supplies. Traffic flow will change. So front of house, you have the customers and you have your service staff, but none of the products really come through, and only completed food items will leave the kitchen and go to the table. In the back of house, you're not going to have any customers to worry about, but you do have all of your staff. You have all of your raw food, which are potential cross-contamination issues, and then all of your finished food going out, as well as dirty dishes and things coming in. Again, we'll look at traffic flow, but these are things that you want to keep an eye on and understand. Minimum aisle width is 30 inches, although to pass safely through inspections, 43 inches is now required. So 43 inches must be required somewhere. Just like a convenience store or a Walmart or a Costco, you can have smaller aisles, but you need to have at least one aisle that will always fit somebody in a wheelchair, which is that 43 inches. When it comes to washrooms, we have to offer washrooms for all genders or a multi-gender washroom where it's individual separate washrooms. So that's what you're seeing now a lot. As this space has become more complex, let's call it, you will see that there are washrooms that aren't necessarily specified as male and female. And I kind of like this, that it's like they have just 12 different individual washrooms down a row, and they're all private, and it doesn't matter who goes in there. They're occupied or not occupied. So that's something that you may want to look at, or you can do the generic male and female, or you can just do unisex one. Really up to you guys. General rule is 1 toilet for every 15 people in the building. This includes staff. So if you think you'll have 100, if your restaurant is completely full with 100 people, but you might have another 20 staff, okay, that's 120. So divide that by 15, round up, and that's how many toilets you should have in the building. Entrances. So I'm almost done, guys. So if you're still watching this, hi, thank you. I'm almost done. Entrances. So this is when you come in the restaurant and when you leave. It's the first thing you see. It's the last thing you see. So there are some things that you really want to consider. Your concept should be stated in the entrance as well. If you're fine dining, that door in should be a big, heavy, lovely door with nice fixtures and all this great stuff. You don't want to have this really kind of chintzy glass door that just opens up and it's light and rickety and you can feel the cold through it. It is the first in, first out. It's their first impression and last. Most people will have a vestibule, which is a separate room cordoned off by a couple sets of doors. Because we live in Canada and Ontario and we have winters, this really stops from those drafts coming into the restaurant and getting people cold, and also gives you a little bit of separation. You can do an in and out kind of door. You can do one of the roundabout turning doors as well. You should have a waiting area. There's always some weather concerns that you want to keep in mind. So a lot of shoveling, and so a lot of times even on the outside of the restaurant, they'll have extended their roof so it's covered a lot of the walkways. When we are in there waiting for a table, you should not be able to see other people eating. There should be some sort of, what's the word? Like a transition area where you might have, storage containers or wine, I can't talk. What are they called? Like bookcases with wine in it. Anyways, just ways to really separate those viewpoints. Because if I'm sitting in the restaurant and I'm looking over my shoulder and I see a dozen people sitting there looking at what I'm eating, wondering if I'm on the bill soon, wonder if I'll be leaving, I wonder if I get that table, that's just not a very nice feel. So you really want that a different transition area from that waiting area to go into that dining room. So it might be wrapped around a corner, or you might have some sort of things that you can put up in which to disguise that. And storage. So while there's going to be a lot of your storage in the back of house area, that will be storage for stuff that's used on a regular basis. The front of house is great for things that are used on a more irregular or pre-shift or post-shift. Okay, so as an example, it might be extra linens or cutlery or glassware that we don't need to access as we're going through our shift. But hey, if I see that we're running low on something, I can pull it out after. Bathrooms should have all their own storage areas with all of their cleaners and toiletries and papers and towels and linens and everything else. You can locate closets around the dining room. They should be out of sight and lockable. And then also we have to think about, as a lot of our dining population may be elderly, strollers, walkers, and wheelchairs are also something that we just have to start keeping in mind. So where do we store these? And there's not always room around a table. And if you have to remove chairs because a couple people with wheelchairs come to it, where do we store those chairs so they're out of the way? So these are some of the things that you just kind of keep in mind. Now, where is that gray zone, that neutral area where I can just drop off some of this stuff? Okay, so yes, that was a lot to talk about, and I kind of breezed through it. It was 45 minutes of listening to me talk on a Saturday. I hope this gave you a good kind of head start to what we're going to do. When we are in class on Friday, we will start our first in-class design project. There we'll be looking at completing a full bedroom unit with walk-in closet and ensuite with all of the moving parts and all of the detail and labeling. Now, while this has, I suppose, little to do with the actual restaurant design, it will give you an idea of spacing, traffic flow. So how do you walk around this room? You know, you get up on both sides of the beds, you open up all your cupboards and drawers, making sure things don't hit each other. You'll have your desk area. You'll have a full working bathroom, and you'll have bathrooms in the restaurant. It kind of gives you a very good beginner's intro to what you're going to be doing. And everyone knows a bathroom or their own bedroom. So we're going to start with that. That will be due at the end of Sunday at midnight for 7.5%. And I strongly encourage you all to be there Friday to finish the actual assignment in class and submit it then. That'll be just easier for everyone. So we'll go from there. Ensure you have good internet connection and you are on an actual computer, no tablets, no cell phones. Thanks for listening.